Welcome to Common Connection. I'm your host, Brett Gettman. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. Today's special guest is Matt Askland with Alameda Mortgage. He's been a lender since 2000. We're lucky to have him in the community, and today we're lucky to be connecting with him right here in our Common Connection studio. We're going to be talking about Father's Day today. So in addition to Matt being an awesome lender, most of you probably already know him, but we're filming this the day after Father's Day. And I'm a dad, Matt's a dad, and I actually doing something a little bit different because we're going to talk a lot about real estate topics, but today we're talking about Father's Day. Matt's a great dad. I know him personally. I've seen the relationship that he has with his daughter. So there's no better person to be talking to about Father's Day. So welcome, Matt.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. To set this up, so people that don't know you, you and I have hung around. We've gone to the dunes. We've gone out to dinner with our families. And I have two daughters. You have a daughter. How old's your daughter?
She's 18.
She's 18.
Yeah.
And so, I've known her, I guess, since she was 16. I didn't realize that. But, on more than one occasion, she's demonstrated to me how tight she is with you. And I think that's awesome. It's admirable. And it's actually something that I look up to, your relationship with your daughter. I have, snippets of that but I've legitimately seen from your daughter where if she doesn't get invited to a dune trip, she gets pissed.
Right. Yes, not happy, not a happy camper. I gotta tell you, honestly, the dunes is something that I think the first time I took her to the dunes, I literally have a picture of her in a car seat, so she was not even 1 year old, and the fact that she's post high school and still wants to go to the sand dunes with me, I got to hang on to that as long as I can.
And we went out so nothing to do with the dunes. Like, you can't even say it's all about the dunes.
Sure.
We went out to dinner in Scottsdale a couple of months ago, and she was hanging out with you, and it was really cool to just see the connection. Pardon the shameless plug there.
Connection, there you go.
But you guys definitely have a really good connection. There was never any, I got to go hang out with Dad or anything like that. A lot of us get
either
sometimes.
She's acting really good or maybe it's actually really true. No, we have a really good relationship, and I'm definitely proud of that, and again, hang on to that as much as I can. Yeah. So I want to, just to be a nerd for a second, I want to kind of do some stats. Okay.
How important, to all the fathers out there and to all the dads out there that get gifts for Father's Day, we get barbecue equipment and a pair of socks, and and that we cherish for at least a day. And,
that's right.
And I've lived in moments of my life. I've lived without a dad figure, and I was raised mostly by a stepdad, so I'm pretty intimately connected to the importance that having a dad an active father figure, the difference that makes. So I did a little bit of research. This was, let's see, the source here, I think it was fatherly.org or whatever. But here's the stats. afathersplace.org, that's where I found this. Okay, research shows that when fathers are involved, their children are 2 times more likely to go to college, 80% less likely to spend time in jail. That's a big number. 80% less likely. 75% less likely to experience teen pregnancy. When a dad isn't there, it's a different picture. Children in father-absent homes account for 71% of all high school dropouts, 90% of homeless and runaway children, 63% of youth suicides.
Wow.
Becoming an engaged dad has benefits for fathers too, selfishly. Engaged dads are more likely to set goals and achieve greater success. Healthy habits become more important. Self-esteem increases as dads see their value.
That's amazing.
Those are big numbers. Yeah. It's not like, 5% here, or 2%, or no, these are huge numbers. Yeah. So, even taking them with a grain of salt. Those are big numbers.
Yeah, I might even throw a little curveball at you. I'm actually I've been separated from my divorced and separated from my daughter's mom since she was 1 year old.
Okay.
So, but her mom and I made an agreement. Even despite all of our differences, made an agreement we'll never put her in the middle of us, right?
Yeah.
So if there's any disagreement or whatever it is, she's never in the middle. And then whoever came into our lives later, which I'm remarried, and her mom is remarried. She has a little sister, and we made it a huge point that we stayed involved together. That we always showed her that we are, we obviously we both love her, and that we are both heavily interested in her. And for me, I didn't, there was even a suggestion early, through our, proceedings of getting divorced and everything, that I take her on the weekends, and I'm like, no, I refuse to be a weekend dad. I'm going to be involved as much as I can, period. So no, it's 50-50, and I don't care what day you have her. If she's got sports, if she's got something, I'm there.
Sure.
It was one of those things that I think maybe I even pushed her harder too. And I also never wanted her to be that kid. Oh, she was a product of a broken home. I'm sure there's stats out there too, right, for that. And I refused to have her be part of that. So when she was with me, or even with sports or whatever, I really felt like I pushed her harder, or I tried to be even harder on her, or worked harder to be a better dad or be more involved or whatever. And at times that would cause a little conflict between us. But
Yeah.
I think really that's grown our connection.
Yep.
Now that she's 18 years old, she'll be 19 in September. She just finished her freshman year in college and still trying to do the sports thing, and so it's that's been a huge part of it. Too, that I didn't. I think that's a really big important piece.
That is.
There's a lot of people that are divorced, and and they throw the kids in the middle. They utilize them as hostage. In certain situations,
Yeah.
You are.
Yep.
Doing you're not doing a very good thing for your kid.
Yeah.
If that's the way
You said something that I actually want to dig into a little bit, because I feel this too. So sometimes you'd go to her games and you'd push her and be, hard on her. So for me, and I know this isn't just a dad thing. I know that there's plenty of moms that wear the role of disciplinarian or the tough love.
Yeah.
But in my family unit, I'm the disciplinarian. I'm the tough love guy. My wife, bless her heart, she was raised by a mom who was the disciplinarian, so she went the 180. So I do know that there's plenty of moms out there but for me, it's always a balance of being friends with my kids,
Right.
versus being their dad.
Yeah.
And I can be their friend sometimes. But it is more important to me to be their dad, and sometimes I go too far, and I'm tough on them, and I probably think, should I have been that tough on them? But I would rather err there than just sacrifice all sorts of discipline for the friendship. I'm cool with them not being my friend until they're 20.
I agree.
But it's not always that way.
Yeah.
Obviously, we do enough fun adventures to where dunes is one of them, actually.
Sure. Yeah.
But we also fish and travel, and we just did a Father's Day weekend trip. So, but that's a tough balance that tends to be on the father's shoulders.
Yeah.
How do you see yourself? Are you the disciplinarian, or is it 50-50, or how do you manage that?
No, I'm definitely a disciplinarian.
You definitely are?
Yeah. I mean, and her growing up, it was harder to do, especially when I had her half the time, even though I saw her a lot more than that because of sports, mainly in school. It was tried really hard to don't hold back if you feel like this is not this you need to be the disciplinarian right now in a situation where it's so easy for those that are sharing time, that you want to be the awesome, fun person and friend because you only got them for a couple days, right? And I think that was hard for me to play the harder role when I knew she needed it, and so anyway, so yes, for sure.
That's really difficult.
Yeah, it is.
You only have 1 week, and then there's probably, Monday or whatever the first day is the honeymoon. And it's like, wait a minute, you're telling me what? You got what grade?
Yeah. So no, it was mainly in sports. Of course, there's a lot of dad moments, right?
Right.
That we can talk about, but sports is a big one. And but no, it was. I think looking back on it, they're going to remember the important times.
Yeah.
And they're going to remember in general that you were tough on them, right? And she wrote me my Father's Day card yesterday, and she wrote it in there. Thanks for being tough on me. Like,
nice.
It was some version of that. It was exact words, but she's basically thanking me for pushing her in sports and pushing her to, save money and do good in a job and be the adult, continue to college, go to college. You have to go to college. Like it just keep doing it, be involved, and be the friend that's the leader. And because to me, I think when the beginning years, you're teaching them and you're molding them and you're being that parent that you should be and being involved. Just period, just be involved, right? And but I think once they're past high school and getting into college and getting jobs, your parenting doesn't stop.
Right.
But I think the role changes a little bit, and that role should be more like a coach. Coach them on their money, coach them on their friendships, coach them on their life, coach them on, it's coaching is a word, right? Just to be that, set an example, and but then that's kind of where the friendship grows, right? Because I think I know she's like my little buddy now, and
that's what I picked up on when we went out to dinner.
Yeah, I love hanging out with her, and I think she enjoys hanging out with me. But she still wants to hang out with her friends. She still chooses her friends right now before dad. But
well, and what's cool about that is, some dads I think have a hard time connecting with their daughters.
Sure.
Like that little buddy. You didn't have any choice.
Didn't have a choice. Yeah.
And neither did I. I had 2 girls, and I'm like, I'm done. You know. So I have both my girls. I mean, they're definitely girly girls, but they like dooning. They both ride horses. They're both car geeks.
It's kind of weird you're putting that together, though. Like, how does that go in the same sentence? They're girly girls, but they like the dunes. They like.
I know,
horses.
right? I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, so there's
a good combination of both.
Most barrel riders are girls.
Yeah,
that's just a thing. But yeah, they like cars and trucks and
I don't know if that's a girly girl.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Probably not.
I've seen your girls in the dunes. They like to have a good time. And
they do.
They don't care getting dirty. So.
Well, and what's funny is
they slept in a tent above your truck.
I was just about to say that. So that's the funny thing is whenever I'm pretty hardcore. Like when I bring Lauren, my wife, we will rent the RV and kind of go all out. But when it's just me and my girls, as you know, it's rooftop tent.
Yeah.
And other people in the dune camp were like, do your girls need a place to stay? Do
Yeah.
they want to stay in our RV? And my girls were like, no, we get excited about staying in the rooftop tent.
That's cool.
So it was like, people were looking at me like it was...
I witnessed that firsthand.
Yeah. It's like,
I can't do that, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't think she'll go without the RV. So,
right?
Yeah. She likes the bathroom in the enclosed bedroom.
Well, once you break that ice, there's no going back.
No, for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, a camp out in the dunes in the middle of January is warmer than most summer nights in North Idaho, where I'm from.
Yeah,
so
true.
It's just all relative. So, but I was reminded about something. You're very active in the Boys and Girls Club, and tell me about how your organization, tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's not, we support the Boys and Girls Club. So I'm a member of the Chandler Compadres.
Okay.
Going on, I think this is going on 9 or 10 years. I'm actually the incoming vice president. I got to follow, obviously, the president, and that'll be next year. Our year goes from really August to May. We take these couple months off right now, but so next August of 24, that's when my real job kicks in as the president. But But yeah, we're just a group of 40 active business owners that raise money for youth charities, and mainly Chandler, but it kind of spills over to the East Valley in certain areas. But the Boys and Girls Club is our largest beneficiary, so that's why you thought of us that way. We just stroked a check last week, actually, to them for over $1 million. So it was the first time, this group had raised over $1 million for one beneficiary. We actually gave away $2.2 million on Wednesday, which was awesome.
That is amazing.
So the first time we ever wrote a 7-figure check, so it was a really cool milestone. But and that's actually another thing when it comes to fathers. Like, there's plenty of things that we do throughout the community that the dads and the kids do together. One big one is Christmas time, where we deliver Christmas to like 60 to 100 families spread out through all Chandler, East Valley. And and the kids join the dads in doing that. And we literally are Santa Claus walking the door, dropping off gifts and stuff. So that's a really cool part of it. But we have 3, basically, we would call events that we put on every year. I'd say the 40 active guys that do this, but there's another 70 life members.
Okay.
They put in their time, if you will.
Okay.
And there's a good group of those guys that are, I think this year was the first time the life members on their own raised over $1 million gross. So the life members are still very active with us, and that's been really the big part of the change in our group. But yeah, and we're Chandler Compadres is the organization, and of course the Boys and Girls Club is one of those beneficiaries.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So to circle back to our experience as fathers, so what's it like? So your daughter's 18 now.
Yep.
See, you're on the back end of the teenage years,
right?
Which is
there you go.
The hardest spot, I think, for most parents.
Okay.
What was it like? Was your daughter dating? Were you the dad that had the shotgun that you were cleaning when she brought home a guy for prom? Or were you the, hey, let me get to know this guy and be his friend? And how did you navigate that?
It was kind of, I would say I was probably going to be that guy sitting in the corner with a shotgun, but no. Honestly, it's my daughter's relationship throughout high school. I would just say rocky is probably the right word. It was a very and a trying relationship, and it was good and bad. It was really this one kid that they were on and off all throughout high school. So it was a very weird relationship. But then the second go around with that relationship, the hardest thing, I think one of the hardest things I had to do as a dad was to sit back and let it happen, because he wasn't right for her, and he wasn't a good guy, so overall. I had to let her figure that out, and so
that's hard.
It was very hard, but it was, honestly, looking back on it, it was another good job, Matt, for letting that happen. Because let her do it, let her grow up, let her make this decision. Because if I made the decision and forced it, then it would be me.
Right.
How do you do that? Oh, that didn't work out because Dad didn't let it happen.
Right.
Yep. I just had to sit back and watch and let it happen. And I got to see her grow up through that. And
that's cool.
And then when she said, no, this is not what a relationship should be like, then I stepped in and said, proud of you.
Okay, yeah.
You're going through that, and don't ever bring him in my house ever again.
Right.
Just throw that little plug.
Right. Yeah. I've heard so many good one-liners for dads. Like the best one I think I've ever heard was, and I haven't done this, but I'm not saying I wouldn't do this, but is his daughter was a teenager, and a guy came home to pick her up to go to the dance or whatever, and he took a 12-gauge shotgun shell and he just flipped it and said catch, and he caught it and he goes, do you know what that is? And he looked at it and he says, I think it's a shotgun shell. He goes, yeah. So my daughter's home at 11 o'clock, or the next one will come at you so fast you won't be able to catch it. So I would never do that.
Disclosure.
But I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
So I am on the front end of that. My daughter is not really dating, but there's been a couple of she's not getting picked up by a guy and they're driving somewhere.
Right.
She's gone to a couple, like, we'll go to the movies and I'll drop her off. And so I'm on the front end of that, and it is challenging. So it's like, how do you handle this where this isn't, they're like all swept in, emotions, full speed ahead, like teenage emotions,
I think I had less concern about that, and I think I would think that maybe this is, I don't know if it's advice or like, I think you're in the same boat, that if you've done it right up to this point, you were that, that disciplinary person, and you've set that standard, and there's an understanding. You've raised a good kid. I know I've met both of your daughters.
Thank you.
And to me, it wasn't something that I felt like I had to worry about because I trusted her.
Yeah.
I trusted Kyler.
Yeah.
And
there's that.
It's gonna work out.
The best thing I tell, I've said this speech to my daughters. I always try to talk to them like a year before they're going to need the information. And I'll share this. Like, this is one speech I've given my kids over and over and over again at different age-appropriate levels since they were 10. Is I've said, look, when you become a teenager, you're probably going to at some point look at me and say, "Dad, my dad's an idiot," and that's normal. Because how I look at it is like this, and I don't know. I'm not an archaeologist or anthropologist or whatever, but if you look at human history, by 15, it was adulthood. 14, sure. 15 was the entrance of adulthood.
Yeah.
It's only been the last maybe couple hundred years that we've, not even that.
Yeah,
like
probably not even that.
Not even that.
No.
Like my grandma, I think at 16 was ready. My great grandma, she was born, she was, like a lot of women were married and
sure.
having kids at 16, 17, 18 years old. And it was weird if you weren't married by the time you were 20.
There's some religions today that's still the case.
It's still happening.
It's still happening.
So let's just bookend it as maybe this American post-industrialized experiment that we're making kids wait a little bit longer. We know brains aren't fully developed until they're 25.
Yep.
And I tell my kids that. But your emotions are, because they have to be. That's the fight or flight.
Well, and then throw social media in the mix.
Well, that's a whole another thing. But just stripping,
next episode.
But just stripping social media out of it. Like, so you knew when to run from a tiger or a threat, or go with your gut if something didn't feel right. You had to have that developed as early as possible. A baby horse will drop out of the mother's womb and have the fight or flight fairly early, or it's going to get eaten by a wolf. And you so your emotions develop a lot faster than the front of your brain.
Sure.
And now thrown in the mix, there's so much adulthood things. Just learning how to drive is something we expect of teenagers that requires advanced motor skills. And
the bigger populations you live in, it's more and more important to get them behind the wheel as soon as possible.
Now they need to learn how to balance a checkbook and do taxes, which requires forward thinking and planning and stuff that didn't maybe exist 100 years ago. Wake up in the morning, let's farm, agriculture.
Right.
The cows need to be fed and milked, and it was a much simpler existence, and it's only been in the last 100 years that we've layered this stuff on, and we've said, look, your body is telling you you're an adult, but unfortunately we're not releasing you into the wild until you're at least 18. And if you take a few extra years, and whether it's go to college or just develop a trade or whatever, like,
get involved in something.
Do something, and give yourself a few more years of finishing.
Yeah.
And so I've explained it to my kids. You're in a role strain. You're in a role strain. Your body is telling you that you're a woman, and it's blossoming like a woman, but you're not ready to be like a woman. But your body is telling you, I'm ready to go get married and have babies.
Right.
And you're in this role strain. We need to suppress that for at least another 5 years, hopefully.
Right.
So I don't know if that made any sense.
I think the easy answer to that, obviously if it's a concern, or a desire to have your kid have experiences, is to paint that picture. Like, you know, and I think I've done a pretty good, decent job of that. Is, you know, I tell them, like, you know, college to me is not about going to get a piece of paper and put it on a resume. You know, nobody looks at, you know, there's no grade on your resume, right? Unless you put it on there, you know, and you know, most of the time having a college education on your resume is just so you actually get the at bat. You know what I mean? Like, you get, someone talks to you. After that, they might not even ask you about it in the interview, right? You just, it got you there. But to me, it's about taking those 4 years. What you're talking about is growing up a little bit. You know, take another 4 years to go have fun, continue education, meet people, grow your sphere of influence, and have a little fun. You know? And then, you know, during that 4 years, whether it be during that 4 years, maybe a couple years afterwards, go see the world a little bit, travel a little bit, like, go be you, enjoy it, because you know, it's getting in the real world. It's gonna last a long time. So there's a lot of years that you'll have that, you know, where you get in the working world, and having to, you know, unless you're just super inspired to do this thing. You know, I graduated college, had no idea what I wanted to do. You know, and so I tell her that all the time. I'm like, it's okay. Like, just get whatever general business degree, whatever it is, until you focus on something you really want, and then maybe go after that. You know, but just take the 4 years to grow up a little bit. You know, I think if you paint that picture of, you know, whether it's getting involved in a sorority or sports, or like, don't just go to school
for the party.
If you just go, or the party, or just the diploma. You know, like, go to school to grow up. You know, get to know other people, and find your way and what you really want to do in the world. And then that relationship that you really want, you know, what she really does, you know, it's going to happen. You know, so and I think she's really kind of clinged on to that. You know, she's luckily still involved in sports, so she's got her sports teams, her teammates, and she's met some new friends at the school, and you know, so she's building this, you know,
tribe.
You know,
building her tribe.
She's building her sphere of influence right now, and it's really fun to watch.
That's cool. What are some, as you look back, anything that you'd be willing to share, some like awesome memories that you've created with your daughter? Obviously, we talked about the dunes, but are there anything that you can think of that, you know, whether it maybe made a big impact, or it's just a memory that you'll cherish forever? You know what?
I would. I know it's kind of weird to say, like, I would say spontaneous moments, right? But, like, even though maybe you plan it, but make it feel spontaneous to your kid, you know, even if she's real little or whatever. And, you know, we were talking the day earlier about date nights. Like, I did a decent job of that, and it kind of fell off, which one thing, if I had to change, would stick to, you know, a monthly date night with, you know, I don't care if you have 4 kids, go on a date night with just one, you know, and separate that. My brother and I growing up, a memory I'll share with my dad was that I didn't know how old I was. I mean, but I was pretty young, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to take you on a trip, anywhere you want to go, you know, for 3 or 4 days, separately. Where do you want to go?" You know, my brother's like, "Well, I want to go fishing." So they went camping and fishing. And I'm like, "I want to go to every amusement park in California." That's awesome. So we did. We went to Magic Mountain, we went to Knott's Berry Farm, and Disneyland, you know, all in a 3-day span. It was nice. And I'm 47 years old, and that was probably 35 years ago. You know, I still remember that. So there've been times where I've kind of, whether it's a dunes trip or you know, just grab her from school and, you know, go do something, you know, just randomly, like, no plans, you planned it, but just grab her and go, you know, and just some spontaneous trips and things like, they're going to remember that stuff. And then when you do that, that's a memory you're building. It's not just the act. For sure. Like, I tell my kids all the time, we just refer to it as we're making memories. You know, and we play a game every time we come back from a trip, on the ride home, 3 hours from town, if it's a car ride, or in the airplane, if it's a flight, is we'll recap it, and I'll say, okay, what was your favorite thing about this weekend or this trip? And, you know, that's my favorite thing to play. And I tell them all the time. I say, you know, you're probably not going to remember the name of your 3rd grade teacher when you're an adult, or even your 7th grade teacher for that matter. But you'll remember that silly little time that
we were on a layover in an airplane or whatever, or the memories. You're going to remember that stuff. Those road trips and those travels are ingrained into your memory. Those are the things that I remember and hold on to.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we love to do. What advice could you give? We've covered a lot of it, but do you have any father-to-father advice that you could throw out to anybody?
Man, I feel like we covered a lot of that.
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say don't be afraid to be disciplinary right now. Don't be afraid to set standards. I know we wanted social media is a whole different thing, but I think parenting in today's world is so much different than the parents that our parents had to parent us in, and be super conscious of those things because it's so much out there today that's influencing our kids. That stay involved, put restrictions in place. They're going to hate you for it.
Yep.
I was a dad that she was the last one to get the phone and then on social, but but it took off like that from there. So it's like almost felt like it. Well, you release control, but then put standards, put things in place. Be the dad that has those restrictions in place. Don't just be a friend. You can be a friend later. There's all kinds of time for that, and it's so easy to. We have families or, moms and dads are both working. It's so easy to just kind of let, the devices, keep the kids busy, and those are things that I would actually do things even more different today to restrict the access to, social and technology. There's a fine line. You can't hide your kid from technology because of the technological world, right?
Yeah, you don't
you want them to know, how to be involved in those things and use those things later for work, But socially, I'd be careful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I remember before I had developed an opinion of TikTok, my daughter had TikTok for a hot month. And so when we took it away from her, and I said, look, you're not in trouble. You didn't do anything wrong, but we're not comfortable with you having this. And we went into why and this, that, and the other. And, Dad, all my friends have it. I'm like, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand they do. But it's like, hey, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Focus on what you do have, which you have a phone.
Yeah.
And of course.
Well, technology in general, you can say TikTok, you can say, Instagram, you can say Facebook, you can say YouTube, you can say any of those things. If you're going to take it all away, restrict all of it to a certain, whatever. Do something to have some limits, but I just think that's just one example of, dads set limits.
Yep. And there's some cool things you can do. I'm a big advocate of, okay, well, I'm not going to take something away from her, but then not replace it with something healthy, right?
Sure.
If you're going to take the cheap pizza out of the fridge, make sure there's something better to replace it. So for me, to use a football analogy and just control the offense or control the ball,
right.
That's where we book trips and get them engaged in activities
Correct.
that are healthy.
Yeah.
She cannot surf social media while she's on a horse.
Right.
It just doesn't work.
Right.
Get
your kids involved in something. It doesn't have to be sports. It could be music. It could be
100%.
anything. There's so many things. Get them involved in peer-related activities. That's that way you have more dad moments that you can help coach them through. And but just get them involved. As long as they're involved, and there's less time for that anyway. So. And
I think to put a bow on this, circling back to the stats that I brought up at the beginning that were super high numbers.
Sure.
So even if they're not perfect numbers, they're so dang high, they should alarm everybody.
Sure.
I think really the common thread is you can be the dad that comes home every day at 5, 6 o'clock after work, but still be an absent father.
Oh, for sure.
And so earlier in my life, when I was in my 20s, I did, it was a survival urban wilderness school where basically These were problem children, I guess, for lack of a better term. They were in trouble with the law. They were getting into drugs. And they all had dads, but their dads were all super wealthy, top 1%ers that were just gone all the time. Mm-hmm. And so their kids had, $5,000 a month allowances and brand new Beamers, and what do you know, they were getting into drugs and getting into trouble.
Imagine that.
And so they were having to spend, a month with me out in the desert and detox and reprogram. And so I guess I say that is like, to piggyback on what you're saying, is I've been willing to sacrifice my friendship. I want the friendship and I want to build it, but it's not going to be at the cost of the discipline,
right,
and the structure and what I know is right, and I'm willing to fly off the handle and let them know that this is important. It's not always going to be kid gloves. It's like, you mess up, you're going to hear it from dad, and things will cool down and life will go back to normal, but I'm going to make you uncomfortable for a while.
Sure.
So I'm willing to do that, and I think that's kind of where those stats come from, is, or if it's a single parent or a single mom, and that's like, is exhausted at the end of the day. Basically, kudos to all the dads out there that are grinding it out, being engaged with their kids.
You just said it. Engagement.
Engagement.
Stay engaged with your kids.
Yep.
Period.
Target lock on.
It doesn't matter if you're 50%, custody, or you're there 100% of the time, because I can tell you, I was probably more involved in my kid, even though I had her 50% of the time, than most dads are that were there 100% of the time.
Sure, yeah.
You can be engaged.
It's not just breathing the same oxygen.
Right.
It's
Good
being
point.
engaged.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
that's what I got. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. I think this is just a topic that, I wanted to put a little light on. Matt, go ahead and tell us if someone's interested in having a loan done for them. We have a lot of realtors that watch this. So,
mortgage plug.
Yeah, mortgage plug.
Yeah, mortgage industry is so fun right now. Thank you. So thank you for the time. This is cool. Common connection. So I'm very excited to watch you grow this thing. And but yeah, I'm been in the mortgage business for 23 years now, and I help out just residential, anything from first-time home buyers. So those guys are fun, to seasoned investors looking to buy multiple properties. But yeah, just residential mortgage guy, and I work a lot with real estate agents and business owners, and but yeah, it's an up and down market. I've been in the business 23 years, so dealing with
nothing you haven't seen before.
Yeah, nothing I've seen before. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate letting me plug that. But I don't know if you have any questions on mortgages, but honestly,
we're going to probably do an
mortgages are the boring side. Buying the house is the fun part, right? The realtors have the fun part, right?
Yeah, well, the money's got to come from somewhere.
That's right. I can help you with the money.
Yeah, you got the money. This guy's got the money. So, well, thanks again, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you on the next one.